Hello, and welcome to Chin Hairs and F Bombs Conversations with Girlfriends. I am SallyAnn Gray, and today I'm having a conversation with my dear friend, Jessica Best. We are going to talk about something really important to us and something that we both share: quitting corporate America. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Thank you for being here. Let me tell you what you've signed yourself up for. In this podcast, I sit down with a good girlfriend and we talk about shit that's important to us. Every time I walk away from these type of conversations, I always feel better. I always feel less alone, more seen, less crazy. I hope that in listening to this, you can also get that feeling. I would love if you felt like you were sitting down with a couple of good friends and you walk away feeling better. So that's what we're trying to do here. I hope it works. Thanks for being here. So I'm going to start and introduce my friend Jess. Hi, Jess. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Sal, it's so good to be here.
Will you please tell us a little about yourself?
Well, I am a Gemini, and I really am. I say that in jest, but I actually am a Gemini. I am a people person. I have enough personalities to fit every one of my friendships, and I am probably also my second fact, which is going to tie into today's topic, is that I am an achiever. If you've ever done like a personality test, my work style is that I'm an achiever. My personal style is that I'm an achiever. And I am also now the owner of a company. So I guess it's okay to achieve some things. I am owner and founder of Better Ave. My last name is Best, and my company name is Better Ave or Better Avenue. And I help people do marketing things during the day. At night, I mostly eat delicious things and post about it on Instagram. Um, but I would say those are the highlights of me.
Cool. I think you did a great job.
Thanks.
I'm Sally Ann Gray. If you don't know me, I am a former overachiever.
Ooh.
Ooh. Yeah. And I'm going to talk about that today too, because I had to make some changes. I learned, recently that I'm an overachiever. And I was like, oh, that's not working.
Or not worth it. It might have been working, just not for you.
Right. It was working for other
It
people
was working.
at my detriment.
Mhm.
Yes. So a little more about me is simply I'm 43. My birthday is very soon. I'm almost 44. Woo!
Yay! Happy early
Yay.
birthday.
Thanks. I celebrate the whole month. It's going to be great. But I am a Midwestern gal living in Maine. Jessica and I know each other from Kansas City, where I used to live. And I now reside in Maine with my hot husband and two insane children. And we love it very much here. I've been here for 10 years now. I would also love to tell how we know each other. Jess and I met through a wonderful organization called Kansas City Direct Marketing Association. We were both pretty involved with them over the years, and we met each other through events and socials, and a love affair blossomed from there.
Can I tell them the other story?
I really want you to.
So, my favorite Sal story, we do know each other through the Kansas City Direct Marketing Association, and one of their big events every year is an awards ceremony, and I had the absolute honor of presenting Sally Ann with the, Young Direct Marketer of the Year award. So, we're at this big convention center ballroom, and we're dressed to the nines because I'm presenting the award and she's taking the award, and we're walking down one of the hall like, I think we were going to the bathroom, and as we were walking down this huge hallway, this gentleman stops and turns to both of us and goes, "You're so dressed up. What's going on?" And Sally Ann, without missing a beat, goes, "Beauty pageant. We both won." And to this day, it's like my most Sally Ann Gray moment. Like, that is one of my favorite moments.
Oh, I loved it. It was a wonderful night.
Yeah.
That moment in time was glorious.
Just the delivery of it. I was like, "That is a comedian's timing. Like, you just don't get any better than that."
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, Jess, let's get into it. Let's talk about quitting corporate America. So, I'll start. I'm gonna give a little, like, context to, how I got there. So, I have been in marketing for over 20 years. I jumped into my field right out of college, which felt very lucky, actually, because I graduated right after 9/11, and marketing
Mhm.
jobs weren't to be had. But I jumped right into marketing and worked primarily for small companies over my career in mainly marketing manager, marketing communications. And about 8 years ago, I was working for a company and I was kind of disillusioned with bureaucracy and leadership and, some choices that I didn't agree with and ways of operating that I didn't agree with. I just was tired. I was tired of it. And truly, over my career, I have had some very bad bosses. Um,
Girl.
oh yeah. I mean, I think the easiest, fastest story of like the a bad boss that I had was one boss who split town and took all the money with him, and we were all unemployed overnight.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if I've told you that story. It is a wild ride, but this guy who is actually a criminal,
Oh
it
my gosh.
he ran away. He split town. And I found this out from a police call. The
Oh,
the police called me. I was on vacation. I was on the side of a mountain, and the police called me and asked me if I had seen this
the
person. I
criminal.
will I will not name him. You can see my face.
I know.
But called me and asked if I had seen him, and I was like, "No, have you?" And I was like, "Say more."
Oh,
And they're like, "Well, we can't find him. He's a missing person." They were asking me because I had disappeared. Well, I went on vacation, but
right.
I had disappeared at the same time, and so I realized that they called me because they weren't sure if he was in my bed or in my trunk.
Shut
Like, I was actually
up.
being questioned.
Respect.
And
Oh,
and here I am, I'm on the side of a mountain, seriously, I was, like, in the middle of skiing, which also I didn't have any health insurance at the time, and I didn't know.
oh my gosh, Sal.
Yeah, and I was unemployed, like, that's a bad way to find out that your job is gone.
On the
So
side of a mountain.
yeah. So, I've had some
Oh,
bad bosses over the years, okay? So, I was very disillusioned,
yeah.
and so the idea of working for myself felt amazing, sounded great, sign me up, and so cute, like, "That's cute, Sal," like, "Nice." You don't know what you're getting yourself into, and nobody could have explained, "Oh, opening your own business," in a way that was gonna, like, permeate my brain to really understanding. And so I thought I was gonna be my own boss, but I really quickly found out all of my clients were my boss. Like, I went from having one boss
Oh.
to a bunch of bosses, and I was like, "Oh, shit."
And the bosses don't talk to each other, so when one has a priority, they don't know that you're working on the other's
Y
priority.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of priorities to have.
Ugh.
So, I went to work for myself, and then, I had a bunch of clients, things were going pretty well, I was building my business, and I had a client that was hiring me for a lot of writing projects, and so I was freelancing for them for a while, and so I felt like I knew them, I felt like I understood them, and then they wanted me to come on full time to be the creative director. Yeah, so as creative director for an agency, and I was running a team of writers and, creatives, graphic designers and developers, and I was also writing, and it was my dream job. It was actually my dream job, and it was the apex of my career. I was running campaigns for Google and Microsoft and Samsung
Yeah, wow.
among other big companies, and I was really proud of the work that I was doing, and
It's really sexy and
and it was not going well. I lasted 13 months
oof.
be and it wrung me out so bad, but it came down to, a bad boss who, didn't really treat me like a full human. I felt like I was just this productivity robot. He didn't have a lot of sensitivity,
Yeah.
so there was that, and I was working so hard. I was just pouring myself into these projects as an overachiever
Yeah.
and running, like at one point, I think I was running 17 campaigns at the same time.
Ooh. Yeesh.
I was working too hard
Yeah.
while telling myself, "Oh, this is what everybody does,
Right. That's right.
and
We've
I
convinced
should be
ourselves.
yeah, I should be able to do this, everyone else can do this." It broke me. It
Yeah.
it totally broke me, and I was suffering from a lot of anxiety at that time, and I was also struggling with depression and grief. The month after I started that job, I lost someone really important to me in a really traumatic way. My therapist killed herself.
Oh, wow.
And it was so bad. It was so bad. She was actually a missing person
Oh my god.
for yeah, and so I got a call from the police on this one as well. I've received too many calls from the police in my life, like,
You're in too close contact with the police.
I
You
don't like it.
don't have to be that friendly with them.
Mm-mm. No, I should not be on their speed dial. I don't like
Nope.
it.
Nope.
Unsubscribe. And I didn't let myself fully grieve, and I wasn't given the space at work to do it. I didn't give it to myself either. Then things started to really fall apart.
Hmm.
And in addition to having an insensitive boss and working too hard, I didn't have the support of the technology either. The infrastructure was not keeping up to the business. It was my opinion. And I am a solver, I'm a problem solver. And so I came in with solutions. I identified some problems and I was like, you know what? These things, X, Y, and Z, could be done. And not only would they make my life easier and better, they would make everybody's life easier and better. And they never went forth with those ideas. And so I wasn't being listened to either, and I was working too hard. And so I quit and I suffered it was burnout.
Mhm. That's
And
exactly it.
you know what though? I didn't let myself believe it was burnout until much, much later. I had a conversation with a friend and was kind of like dumping how hard things were at that time. And, I'm a working mom of two and it's a lot. And the friend was like, I'm sorry, do you work 40 hours a week? Just 40 hours a week? And I was like, yeah. And she was kind of like, okay, like dismissive
Oh.
about this.
Mm.
And so then I was like, I don't deserve to use that word burnout. It doesn't apply to me. Apparently, I don't work enough. Because I don't work 60, 80 hours a week, I'm not allowed to be burnt out. And that
Yeah,
isn't true. Like,
not
if
true.
you add up all the things that were going on in my life, I was suffering from burnout. I've read the book Burnout. Have you read that book?
I haven't, but you absolutely are. I mean, it doesn't take just job hours, it's all of your waking hours, it's all of your energy and how it's being expended, and I would argue that 40 hours that feel chaotic and you're trying to manage and switch between 17 campaigns and juggle a jerk boss,
Yeah.
you could be working 35 hours a week and you would have been burnt out by that.
Yeah. And I was actually. I negotiated with them to go down to 32 hours, work a
Oh,
4-day work week. I was like, "I'm gonna be European, bitches." And and negotiated a 32-hour work week, so
wow.
and it didn't help.
Yeah.
And 2
That's
months
not the
later,
problem. The number of hours was not the problem. The
it
way you were being
wasn't.
treated, the way
Yeah,
you were being valued, you were giving everything as a person who gives everything every time, and in return, they were
yeah.
saying, "Cool, that's what we expected."
Yes. Yeah,
Not, "Let me make it easier for you," not, "Here's where we are, driving towards so that you can join the vision." Just, "Yep, got it."
yeah. Be our worker robot. Just keep
Yeah.
doing and don't complain.
Yeah.
And this is gonna sound weird, but before I started working there, I felt really before I started full time, when I was freelancing, I felt really appreciated, I felt like my work was valued, and then once I started, that kinda dropped off, and, like, looking back on it, I was like, I it's like I was being love bombed and
Oh,
then, like, that manipulative relationship thing of being love bombed and then it drops off once you, like, commit, and
right.
that kind of happened, and I was like, "Ew, what?"
Yeah. I won't
Um,
tolerate it in my personal life, so I would say that in my professional life, I'm even less likely to
yeah.
tolerate like, yeah, it sounds like once you were an internal employee, you're just a worker bee, and that's how they treat their people.
Yeah, it didn't sit right with me, and the breaking point for me was when it was, like, 5 p.m. and I was finally off work and, I'd logged off and I was trying to make dinner for my family, and we sat down to dinner, and I was just this evil bitch. Like,
Yeah.
I was so
Yeah.
awful to be around. So
Girl, you
awful.
are literally a mirror for what just happened to me a year ago. Like, I am such a bad person right
I
now.
was an absolute monster, and I saw how I was being to my people, to my husband and my 2 kids, and I was like, "Oh god, this is what I don't want this to be the memory that my kids have of their childhood and of who I am as a mom."
Mm.
I was short-tempered and I was awful. And I was like, "This has to change." And that's when I was like, "I can't do this anymore because it is impacting everything in my life, and super negatively, and life's too goddamn short for that."
Right. Even if you didn't do it for your kids, even if you wanted to be a better person for your kids, it's still worth it just to be a better person for
Yeah.
yourself. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like I couldn't keep joy very long, right?
Mm,
And some of it is because I was so tired, but I couldn't be a good person because I couldn't hold on to joy long enough to balance out like, we talk about filling our cup. My cup
yeah,
was leaky. My cup had a big slice through the middle. I couldn't hold on to it.
yeah,
And I just didn't have anywhere to go. It was so similar to your story where I finally
yeah,
was like, "Yeah, I gotta go. I have to I obviously cannot continue to do this."
I totally yes. Okay, so tell us your story. I wanna hear it.
Yeah, so mine is a little bit different because one, no none I've never talked to the police, Sal.
Lucky you.
Um, but I can absolutely relate to having a bad boss. Mine was 2 parts. I was in a job at an agency that I consider very large. I think a 400-person agency is actually really big, but they would consider themselves sort of a fierce, small, independent agency, and so we hustled. There was a lot of hustle, and everybody did work, and I love that. Like, I am not interested in working at a place where middle managers sit on their thrones and point at people. Like, that's just not my style. I'd rather be doing the work. I'd rather share the work with my team. I'd rather enable my team to do great work. And I was given a lot of authority and autonomy in this job. So every once in a while, somebody be like, "Gosh, you're so great at this. Why don't you go out on your own and just make yourself more money? Like, why don't you freelance?" And I was like, "Why would I do that? These people have all the accounting and billing and fine and award-winning creative teams. Like, I have all these great resources. I love it here." And in 2022, after 2 pretty hard years, I think no matter what job you've been doing for the last 4 years, 2020 and 2021 would have tested your limits of how much you actually liked your job, no matter if you liked your job in 2019 or not.
It
Uh,
also tested relationships.
yeah, that's right, that's right. We added a little spice to see if everybody
Mhm.
still wanted the dish. So, in 2022, like many, many companies, my company, my agency was having a hard time backfilling open positions. I had 17 people that directly or indirectly reported to me. I would do anything for them. I was a path clearer for them. I very much believe in servant leadership. And so I was in the trenches with them. So I lost an employee in July. I lost an employee in August. And Sal, what do I do when I lose employees and there's no one else to fill the work? Your girl does the work, right? It has to get done. And this is an integrity thing for me. It's an achiever thing for me. And I do think I prioritize things really well, but I was doing two very, very, very full-time jobs. And also I was supposed to be the vice president of a team. I had my own tasks that I was supposed to be doing. And so it didn't take long for that to start to wear me down. I was probably in the 11 hours a day range. So when we talk about it's a chaotic number of hours when you are at the office, but I was also just doing a lot of them. And I was taking all of that. I kind of started to run on adrenaline a little bit. I was taking a lot of that
Mm.
my dinner hour. I was not sleeping. When I tell you, like, I wish it were an exaggeration. I bet I didn't actually sleep more than about 2 hours a night, even if I laid in my bed for six.
Oh, no.
And I was unwell. I mean, there are
Yeah.
very few times in my life when I have felt I am so very clear that I am unwell. And I started
Mm.
talking to problem number 2. I started talking to my manager and his manager, who I had previously reported directly to. The COO of the company and I had had a great working relationship. I was at this agency for 7 years, and I noticed that the way that my manager and I ran things was not the same. He is maybe less of a servant leader, maybe doesn't have a lot of empathy. And I think there's a little bit of he was a Harvard grad because his dad was a Harvard grad. And so he didn't do a great job of relating to people who weren't Harvard grads.
Ooh.
So he just wasn't a very relatable person. He was maybe a little socially awkward, and he had wild expectations for how we should treat him because he was our boss. So very
Mm.
different from my servant style leadership.
Mhm.
No longer was I given sort of authority and autonomy to run the team. He was helping, whether I liked it or not. Um, and so where it broke down was I can get along with you. I don't think I should report to you. You do this other department thing. And when we both reported to the same person, I feel like that's a better working relationship. And so I started having conversations with the COO. Like, I think I can work like alongside this person, but I don't find that he has the same definition of integrity as me. And I hate him a little, and I would love to not report to him. He hated me he hated me right back, Sal. This is the guy who, when he tells it, I am absolutely the villain in the story. Like, I was undermining his authority, I was insubordinate, I cussed around him. Can you believe I cussed around him?
Can't fucking believe that.
I know. I love cussing. I love cussing, and I did not find out that he didn't like cussing until I sat in the HR pit of despair where I'm like, "Tell me, HR mecca person, tell me where I'm supposed to be here. Like, tell me what I'm supposed to say or what I'm supposed to be doing differently." She goes, I have to think that maybe let's call him Chad. Maybe his name is Chad. It is not. But let's call him Chad. Maybe, Chad doesn't really like cussing. Maybe you could lay off of that a little bit." And I was like, "Mia," her real name in HR, "Mia, do you think that's something that Chad could have just told me as, like, a
Mhm.
fellow fucking adult? Like, do you think he could have just said, 'It feels disrespectful to me when you use cuss words around me'? Because I feel like
Mhm.
we could have skipped the whole going to HR
Mhm.
thing." Okay, so I am, like, boiling point. Like, I am not sleeping.
Yeah.
I hate my clients. I hate most of my team,
Mm.
and they were awesome people. Um,
Mm.
my husband hates everything about my job at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I am just raw. I am crying on most of my phone calls, like, I am just raw all the time. And it kind of finally broke down when, in addition to not being maybe a very empathetic or servant leader for me, my manager thought he would solve for me the problem of being understaffed by hiring a second vice president. That was my title. I was a vice president of the CRM department. And he sits down and he's so freaking proud of himself, Sal. He's like, I've got this great resume from somebody who works at insert competitive agency name here,
Mhm.
that does this CRM team leadership role. And I think I'm going to bring him in. And I was like, why? And he's like, "Well, you're drowning. You're not, you've been underwater since I became your manager. We've got to fix this." And I was like, "I'm underwater because I'm doing two associate director level positions all the time, which I'm actively trying to get filled. How did you get the money to hire another vice president?" He goes, "Well, I put a vice president in one of your associate director positions."
No.
Sorry, say that again. You what? I'm literally saying this like this to him. Like, of course he thought I was insane.
Mhm.
I probably made the exact face I am making to you right now. My face says, "You did what the fuck now?" Like, he thought he was helping by bringing me somebody who could do the vice president role that I was not able to do, and I was like, "So, did I just get a demotion? Like, do I just have to
Right.
do the associate director's work forever? Because I don't you just closed a position. You closed an open position and hired somebody for twice the salary, by the way."
It was done? It was done. He had done it.
Well, the first time he talked to me, he said he was thinking about it, and at the end of that conversation, just to sort of give you a taste of our relationship, I'm asking, like, "Why? That doesn't help me." And he goes, "I'm doing this for you." And I was like, "Well, you can't do this for me without talking to me." And he goes, this is an executive decision. I don't need your permission." And then he went and hired the guy, and then he announced it to me.
Ew.
Yeah, he was not the right person to lead a leader. From a
Mm.
very far way along, like from a lot of months later, I can see that I was the worst thing to ever happen to him. I was confident. I was running a $7 million revenue stream for the company. I had grown it year over year, and the COO thought I walked on water. Like, they loved me there. And I was the biggest threat to him because he needed to pin me down. He needed
Yeah.
to know that he would get credit for anything that happened on any of his teams, including mine.
Mm.
And as a whopping 34-year-old that had worked in big corporate America, he kind of brought that ick. He brought that perspective, good, bad, or otherwise, to the team. And he needed me to say, "You're right, because you're my boss." And I just wouldn't say it. And he was like,
Wow.
"Do you think I get to pick my boss?" I was like, "Y- What? Are you hiring a boss for me? Like, is this gonna be a boss for me?" And he goes, "No, you guys are gonna be working side by side." And I was like, "Who's gonna do the associate director's work?" He goes, "I don't care, I'll make the new guy do it." And I was like, "The new guy, he's been group director for CRM at VMLY&R for the last 10 years. He is not going to do the associate director's job,
Right.
and I kinda don't want to that much longer either. Like, I don't wanna be
Right.
doing this. And if he's not gonna do it, I'm not just gonna let the work not get done."
Mm.
All of this starts to build, gross, gross, gross. I start talking exclusively to the COO and not talking to my manager, Chad. And at the point at which I had conversations, because this guy was kind of new, he'd come into a new role and he was kind of allowed to build his empire in his department, which is always a really cool moment. He had always honored the hierarchy of who he reported to. So, like, I tell my COO, "This guy is talking down to me." And he goes, "I've never found him to be that way." And I was like, "That's because he thinks you're his boss."
Mhm.
And the COO goes, "I am his boss." And I was like, "Let me see if I can explain this." We're together for a year, and I've never felt like you need me to acknowledge that you're the boss. So he's treating you in this honorific way that he expects me to treat him, even though I don't participate in bullshit or bureaucracy. I don't work at this job if that's who we are now. And that was it. Like, it just turned into, "I have the best solution for y'all ever. You got another VP who starts in 2 weeks. I'm gonna give my 3 weeks notice." I would love to give him as much background and as much support as I can. And this is also a friend of mine that came into that role,
Mm.
so excited to work at Barkley. He was so excited to work with me, and on his first
Oh.
day, I told him I was quitting. But I remember, Sal, if we go back to, like, that straw, that moment that broke the camel's back, because I had spent so much time trying to convince the COO to see my side of it. Like,
Mm.
"Can't you see how gross he is? Can't you see how he lacks integrity? Can't you see how he treats the team and how he's ineffective? And he's made this decision that would be potentially detrimental to the function of my team."
Mhm.
And the COO was like, "Yeah, you say that like it's your team. Like, a lot of people call it their team, but, like, you say my team like you've got, like, a possession over it." And I was like, "Isn't it my team? Do I run this team or not?" And that was the breakdown. Was he was like,
Wow.
"I think that you're seeing that Chad wants to take co-ownership of what you guys do, and you're being a little protective of it." And so he almost made it like, "Do you see how this is also partially yours to take credit for and not just his? It's a clash between the 2 of you, which means it's both of you." And I was like, Yeah, I'm probably to blame for our communication style. He seems to respond poorly when I have anything to say, so I'm sure that's at least partially my fault. I mean, Sal, I don't pull punches, so it is absolutely partially my fault. I was absolutely the instigator of most of our fights. But he basically the COO basically justified, "Do you think that part of the reason he doesn't speak to you anymore is because of how you talk to him?" And I was like, "I guess, except for I thought we were adults."
Mhm. Yeah.
So, long story short, I realized that it was not just that I had a bad boss, it was that he was gonna win, not in a competitive
Yeah.
him or me type of way, but in a, "This isn't a workable situation for me, and I gave you an alternative." I said, "I don't think you're gonna fire him." "Nope, you're right, I'm not gonna do that." "I don't think you're gonna fire me." "Nope, you're right, I'm not gonna do that." I said, "Then to me, the solution is just don't make me report to him. It doesn't make sense to have this team report under his team anyway. It seemed like it was a move of convenience. It's not working. Let's undo it."
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
answer I got was, "It would look pretty bad to the rest of the company if we couldn't make you 2 work together."
Wow. So you didn't have the support of upper management.
Right. It
Yeah.
wasn't just my manager, it was that he
Right.
had the ear, and it was his story that was the
Mhm.
prevalent story to upper management.
Yeah. That
Oh.
sucks. I'm so sorry.
Thanks. Thanks. I had a hard time telling that story for the first couple of months after. When I
Yeah.
gave my notice, my last day was gonna be on Halloween. Felt
Mm.
I don't know. It was a Monday, not a Friday, and I remember just 4 o'clock. All right, that's it. I turned my stuff in and nothing. I needed the nothing, Sal. Like, when
Yeah.
I quit and gave 3 weeks notice, I knew that it was gonna be to work for myself because whereas I'd always been afraid of like, "Yeah, but I've got all these like, I've got accounting people and creative people." I started to think those people weren't very good at their job, and that not that I think it's an easy job, but I can't possibly mess it up more than how they're messing it up at this big company, so, like, I'm gonna give it a go. Like, I'd gotten so jaded that I was like, "I'm
Yeah.
at least as good at some of this other stuff that's not my primary job as I need to be to run a company." So, I gave my notice, but I was not allowed to start a company yet because I was not a good person yet.
Well, tell me about that. Like, how did you recover? How did you reset?
Yeah, the big piece for me was that I knew I needed to give myself. Nobody needs to start a company at the holidays, right? Like, there's
Right.
plenty of stress, there's plenty of family, there's plenty of stuff to do at the holidays. I would have given myself the whole last week of the year off anyway because I would be the best boss I've ever had.
Mhm.
Um, but for me, it was I knew that November and December was gonna be a no-fly zone. I'm not allowed to invent things, I'm not allowed to start a company, I'm not allowed to start work, I'm not allowed to start pitching, I can't go to networking events, like, I am going to take work completely out of my life for 2 months, and you use the word reset, which I think is really important because for me, it wasn't just that I had to stop working, I had to stop the speed of chaos. Does that make sense? Like, I thought that 19 things a day was the right number of things a day to do. Personal or professional. Like, I could do a coffee at 7:30, be at the office by 8:30, I could have meetings from 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30, 10 whatever, work through my lunch break and get through my inbox, and then stay until 6 to get things done, and then I would go home and I would make dinner, and then I mean, I thought that that was the right speed of
Yeah,
life.
the pace of life was too fast.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. Do you know, I think I have found the secret to life. I think you should be able to do 3 things a day. Like,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and I was really strict about it in November. When I quit my job, my first day off was November 1st, and I thought, "Oh my god, I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna be bored." Nope.
Isn't
Nope.
that surprising? Yeah, everybody thinks that. Everybody thinks they're gonna be bored, and we have so much life that we've put off.
100%. I mean, the things I had put off because I knew I was just trying to make it to the end of October doing 3 jobs, but also, I mean, when I say 3 things a day, like, I literally feel like making lunch from scratch counts.
Yeah.
Laundry, I counted that. Like, for November, I was so strict about it because I
Cool.
kept still going at that same pace. Well, now that I'm free, I should do that. I should read that book I never started. I should get my driver's license renewed. I mean,
Overachiever alert.
yes! Girl, yes,
Mhm.
I literally was still at overachiever pace. I was still
Mhm.
running on adrenaline.
Yeah.
2 weeks after I quit my job, I still wasn't sleeping through the night, and I remember, let's not call it a fight. I remember
Mhm.
in stern tones telling my husband, "Why am I not a good person yet? I've been out of my job for 2 weeks. Why am I not
2 weeks. You're so
what?"
cute.
And Brian was like, "Well, it's 2 weeks, like, maybe just keep doing the things that you're doing to fill your cup. Keep taking naps, keep taking breaths, keep taking walks," right? All these I mean, I'm doing all the things I think make a good person, Sally Ann Gray. I am making time for myself. I am doing things the slowest way possible. I actually made it a challenge to do things the slow way just to
Interesting.
be sure that I was slowing down. Like, if I could drive to take my compost to the compost bin, it's like 2 miles away, and it would take me 15 minutes, I would walk instead and it would take me 2 hours.
Really?
I had nothing to do, and I needed the space. I needed the
Yeah.
air. I
Yeah.
needed the walk. I needed the movement. I needed to be back in
Mhm.
my body
I
again.
know.
And it
I
wasn't until maybe the 4th weekend, it was maybe the earliest part of December that I remember it like, I mean, I woke up and I was like, "Oh my god, I could cry. I slept through the night."
wow.
I needed to reset. I needed to pull back on what I thought I needed to get done in a day.
Yeah. I it took me longer to
Really?
it
Makes
really
me feel
did.
better, actually.
It took me so long, and I did it wrong, because I didn't take a break for a while.
Mm.
I I still had some clients, and I was like, "Oh,
Oh, yeah.
it's" and so I was still working, and I was like, "This is a break," and it wasn't. It wasn't, and
Uh,
I, um I ended up taking a sabbatical and
yeah,
doing no work later. It was many months later because I was like, "This still isn't working. I'm
right.
still not okay."
Your cup is
Yeah,
still broken. You are doing less, but completely empty still.
yeah.
You never repaired that. You're not holding water again yet. I don't know. That's the best metaphor I can think of.
I was still doing for everyone else. I was still
Yes.
putting myself
Yeah.
last. And so calling it a sabbatical really helped me because I was like, "I'm not working. Sally, you can't work because I saw how when I was working part-time, that is wasn't good enough, and I decimated my calendar.
Ooh, tell me about
So yeah, I took fucking everything off of our
that.
calendars,
Was that the
and
most cathartic thing you've ever done?
yeah, and I won't go back. So, I was running around, as a mom, you do so much. I've got 2 kids, you wanna give them everything. Vomit, don't do it. Anyway, um and so, like, they had drum lessons, guitar lessons, Girl Scouts, and birthday parties, and a bunch of commitments, drawing class, and it was just too much.
Yeah.
And so I had to decimate our calendar and start saying no. I mean, I've read the book, The Year of Yes,
Yeah.
and I was like, "That's a cool story. Not for me. I need a year of no."
Correct. I might be 2 years of no. I might still
Yeah.
be on my 2nd year of no, Sally.
Good, good. Exercise that no. It is a full sentence, and I had to take it so seriously. I had to take rest as seriously as I was taking a job.
Oh,
And
great
I
phrase.
I have healed, and I am okay now, and I had other compounding things going on. I also was dealing with a lot of trauma responses, and I needed to heal from some old traumas and new traumas, and that took therapies and time and work, and I had to do that. But I just changed how I look at life and
Oh,
work-life balance,
yeah.
and even when I was working 40 hours a week, I was like, "This is bullshit," and I think that is too much. I I just do. I think 32 hours is closer to realistic. I think we shouldn't be giving that much time to things outside of our lives. Like,
Yeah.
if you go to a job, you are hanging out with people you didn't pick. You spend so much time with these people and so little time with the people you do pick. Your family, your chosen family, the activities that make you who you are, and it's just not worth it.
It's not a fair trade.
Ugh, it's not a fair trade. And so I learned a lot from losing everything. I felt like I lost everything. I mean, I walked away from I call it my nightmare dream job.
Yeah.
It was my dream job. I was doing great work. I loved what I was doing,
Yeah.
and I was miserable,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it took my health from me, and it
Right.
made me a bad person.
Right. I mean, talk about not a fair trade. You
Yeah.
are taking you're doing your job to earn a living for your family who you're not seeing, and when they
Mhm,
do see you, you're not a happy person that they
mhm.
enjoy being around. You don't enjoy being around them because you can't pay any attention to what's going on around you because you're distracted
Yeah,
by the things you haven't done. I mean, it's just not a fair trade, not to mention your health.
right.
My
Yeah.
gosh, when
Yeah,
did
we
we
can't
decide that jobs were an okay substitute for sleep? Get out. No,
mm-mm,
thank you.
mm-mm. No,
And it
no, not
seems like so I agree. You said that you feel like everybody works this hard. I said that for years. Like, but everybody at my agency works this hard. We all put in the effort. We're all in the trenches side by side, right? Like it's not just me out on the battlefield and like everyone else is like on the couch having a beer.
yeah.
And I think that that's true, especially in the agency life in corporate America. I think maybe there's a broad range, right, of people where there's a lot of hustle in a company and there's a lot of hiding places in a company.
Yes, there
And I
can
think
be.
what I learned was nobody was working like I was working. Like, so when I started my sabbatical, I love that word. I'm going to borrow that. When I had my 2 months off and I started saying yes to personal coffees, I like,
Mm,
oh, I'd love to hear more. No, I don't want to talk about it, but we'll go to coffee. And even in January, I'd started my business in January of 2023. And I had so many lovely people reach out to me and say, I'd love to tell you how I did it, how I turned my idea into entrepreneurship and into success. And I said
oh,
yes to everyone because coffees with human beings out loud in real life is like one of my cup fillers. Like that is a yes for me.
yeah.
And I, for the first time, realized I was the only person who ever had to leave at the end of the hour. So I'm going to these coffees and
Mm,
let's say I met somebody at 9, luxury. I'm meeting somebody at
mhm,
9 AM, like
mhm,
normally the workday for me, right? And at 10 AM, I would ask, like, "Do you have a hard stop?"
right.
Sallyann, no one has hard stops.
Yeah.
Like, I was the only person who was fitting everything in to my
Mm,
day. No one else had to be anywhere. And I mean, like, owners of companies,
mm.
new business development people that have money to go make, like,
Mhm.
no one was as
Yeah.
shoved in as I was when I was trying to fit people into my day.
You know, a lie that I told myself, and it sounds like you told yourself too, that did not serve me was, "Sal, everybody else can make this work. Why can't you?"
Ugh. Yeah.
That did not help me, and I really believed it. I really thought everybody was giving 100%, 40 hours plus a week,
Yep.
in addition to, volunteering on the PTA and making meals from scratch and, like, m crafting Christmas gifts, and I don't think it was actually true, but it really harmed me to believe that it was.
Yeah.
I gave up social media 6 months ago,
Ugh.
and I literally deleted myself, like, I don't exist on the internet, and a big part of it was the comparison that you can get from social media, and it was just not working for me. I felt like it was a lot of lies, and I couldn't buy into it.
I see that. So, I'm not quite to deleting social media. I can't get joy out of Facebook anymore. So I mostly spend time on Instagram where I'm mostly following food posts and posting about food. So it's a light social media light. It's not where all the scaries are, but I will say that especially on Instagram, I feel like I have friends of mine, especially moms, those who have young kids that are in that how does she do it all stage of their life. And I'm trying not to be preachy to these people because they are so important to me and they seem to be in the flow of it. But I also know that when I sit down with them one on one, they have that same chaotic anxiety that I held because I always felt like I was late for something. I always felt like I should be
Mhm.
doing something productive, even when I was spending time with the people I
Ew,
choose.
ew.
I
So
know.
I call that toxic productivity, and I have given that up. I have given up toxic productivity. The idea that you always have to be doing, achieving, crossing something off your list, it broke me. It fucking broke me.
Ugh.
I don't do that. And I'll give it to whoever wants to have it. Like my husband, he has so much energy. I don't know how he does it. Go forth and conquer.
Go
You
do it.
know?
Go get filled up by it.
Yeah, if that's his jam, and his hobbies are different than my hobbies,
Right.
and it looks like work to me, but maybe it doesn't feel like work to him, and that's why he loves it, and that's why I don't do it, you know? Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about, like, how it changed you, what you're doing different, what you learned that you
Yeah.
haven't said already?
There's so much
I
here,
know.
right? And this is so multifaceted for me, especially because 'cause I'm still not so very far away from it. But the fact that when I left, it was like, "Oh, that's too bad that Jessica couldn't get along with Chad." And
Mm.
now Chad's been fired. Um, and I think for a while, I really was trying to figure out
Oh.
what my guilt in that relationship was. And I'm pretty clear now that, while I can certainly say things more nicely, or be more kind and empathetic to somebody who maybe does not have the social skills to give the same thing back to me, I do not think that it was my fault anymore,
No, of course that's not your fault.
right? Like, I listen, I'm a person that works on myself, right? Like, I'm not done. I'm not cooked yet. Um,
Me either.
and still, I think that I'm a person that is really I'm a very self-assured person. I know who I am, I like who I am, and the things that I'm working on are all around delivery. Um,
Mm,
I want to not make myself small, but I want to make space for others. And that's something that I really took to heart. I mean, I'm getting feedback from the leaders of my company saying, "Are you sure it's just not that you're not working with him?" Like, okay, let me my first reaction is fuck off, but let me sit with it and see if there's something here for me, and I spent a long time with it. It's the most questioning of my personality I've done maybe in my entire life, and I think whereas, like I said, I can be kind, I can deliver things with less heat so that other people feel like they are still welcome to contribute, or counter, which I welcome, but sometimes my voice does not say that I welcome that.
mm.
Um, I can work on my delivery and I remember literally telling the HR person, she goes, "I think that Chad is a little intimidated by you." And I was like, "Probably."
That sounds like a him problem.
That's it. I told her, I was like, "Mia, I am not in the business of making myself small for others' comfort. If he is feeling insecure, I would be able to understand that, but that's not something that I feel called to fix for him."
Mhm. Yeah. There's, a lot of people, a lot of women take, too much responsibility for things. We need to be careful about that.
Well, and in this case, it was being given to me, like, I don't know that I usually am that introspective, let's just say, because I'm so self-assured, and I think there's a difference between confident and self-assured.
Mm,
I am this person, I am this shape, I take up this much space, right? And in this case, I was being told, "Are you sure that you're not stepping on someone else?"
mm,
And where I needed to draw my line was just because he feels intimidated by me does not mean that I need to become less intimidating. I am successful. I am confident. I am clear in the vision that I have for this team. And I've been given runway for that for the last 7 years. So if he's intimidated by the fact that I have history and success, I have sympathy for the fact that you feel intimidated by that. but I have no action that I will take to correct that. That's not my problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, lots of growing. It
Yes.
helps to have a job where I would agree with 32 hours a week. It helps to have a job where I, in my own company, my company of one, we all only work 30 to 35 hours a week as well. And that's partially to leave room for all the administrative stuff I didn't know how to do that I'm figuring out how to do.
Totally.
Um,
Yep.
Even fitting that within 35 hours a week has kind of been my goal. And I'm looking to make space to just exist as a person, to bring value to my life as a person, and to
Yeah.
spend more time thinking about the things that I want to get out of life. Because I think
Cool.
I have not had a lot of big why discussions with myself when I'm mired in
Yep.
adrenaline and no sleep and just trying to get through the day. I didn't even remember why I was doing it. So I've had a good
Me
why.
too.
Last year was a good why year for me.
Yeah, I ask myself why until I can't ask why anymore, and
Yeah.
that's when you get to the real reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, um, and your perspective and your experience, and I'm sorry that we both had to go through some serious hardship, but it does appear that we are both better because of it.
Yeah. And I appreciate hearing, you and I have been friends for a long time, but not always in touch during that time. And I love that we've reconnected and that you share the sort of the same solve. Like I almost stumbled into my solve where I was so tired. The only option was to quit and just go, don't talk to me, la, 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 la. But that you were sort of finding that same truth, right? That you tried to back off and that the answer was actually to stop, to get off the roller coaster,
Yeah,
to stop. And so it's very validating for me because it was hard to go from not even 60, like go from 125 miles an hour
yeah.
to nothing, and to believe that that was the only way that I could have maybe solved where I was at.
Well, and also if you don't see anybody else doing that, you think, "Oh, well, I'm fucked up," or,
Right.
um, "I don't know how to do this thing called life." Like, I hate these things that we tell ourselves, but if you don't see it, you don't know it's happening.
Right.
And, I mean, honestly, that's another reason for this podcast is to make people feel less alone in some of these hard fucking things that we live through and people don't talk about enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Just talking through it with a good girlfriend.
Seriously.
I love it.
Okay, so I want to share a story with you. We're gonna do story time with your gal pal, Sal. So this story is totally related to the topic.
Mm.
This happened at work, at the bad job that I quit. I was a month into the job. I was so racked with anxiety the first month that I
Uh-huh.
almost quit. I mean, that was my body telling me early on. That was
Yeah.
my body saying, "This isn't working." Anyway, I stuck to it, which is a thing that I do. Toxic trait. Anyway,
But we
so
learn. We're learning, Sal. We're learning.
learning, yes. So, anyway, I'm a month into this job, and I had the heinous experience of losing my therapist. And so I remember my therapist was missing, and it was all over the news, and I came to work on Monday. She was still missing, and at 9 AM, I had this feeling, and I thought, "Oh my god, something changed." And I refreshed my browser for the 1,000,000th time to learn that they found her body,
Uh,
and I was obviously wrecked.
yeah.
And so I texted my boss and I said, "I I cannot work today. I have to take a mental health day."
Yeah.
And I think I explained a little bit, like, why, and, he said, "Okay, okay. Can you jump on a call real quick to go over your tasks for the day?" And I was so in my grief, I was just like, "Okay, I guess." And I jumped on a
Oh,
call. I would never do this again. I jumped on a call and it was an hour long. And
Oh
he
my
managed in this call to actually ask me, like, why she killed herself?
what?
But there you can't answer that. Like,
Right.
okay, so this is the emotional, like
Intelligence quotient that this guy is.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I took that day off. It wasn't enough. One day was not enough. The next day, I'm back at work. I'm trying to work. It's hard.
Mm.
And I'm in a meeting with my boss, the insensitive boss, and one or two other people. And we were problem solving. There was this issue with this software, and we couldn't get it to do the thing we wanted it to do. And, I was new to the company. I had been with the company officially for about 6 weeks. So I was also new to this software. But listen, I can learn any software. I that's my
Uh-huh.
shit, man.
I
Nerd alert.
I love it.
And so they were like, "Well, did you do this to me? Like, did you try this?" And I was like, "Yes." And they're like, "Did you try this?" And I was like, "Yes." And they're like, Did you try this?" And I was so fucking sick
Mm.
of them. And my boss goes, "Well, what about this?" And I stopped and I go, "Don't underestimate me, Larry." Dead silence.
I bet.
And he was like, "Okay." And we just moved on.
Oh
And
my
I
god.
was like, "I can't believe I just fucking said that." But I was
Girl,
so raw.
100%. I can believe you said that because it was
Yeah.
true. It was how you
Yeah.
were feeling, and he didn't give you space to feel, so it
Yeah.
came splurting out of you when he tried
Yeah.
to attack your intelligence.
And so this became a catchphrase. "Don't underestimate me, Larry," became a catchphrase. And a girlfriend of mine memed me. It was Rivka. She was on my last episode. She made this notebook and printed on the front is this insane picture of my daughter. She looks furious and
Uh-huh,
fierce as shit. And
uh-huh.
underneath it, it says, "Don't underestimate me, Larry."
Oh, that you know what? That's a gem. That's a keeper.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're welcome to say that anytime you feel like
I
someone is underestimating you.
and just call them Larry.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think that works.
One of my colleagues that was on that call,
Uh-huh.
I was like, "Oh my god, I must have terrified her." And later she was like, "I think you're a badass."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay.
Yep.
So you don't think I'm an insane person?"
Oh, no. To be clear, those are not mutually exclusive. But I have found I have found that the more I was raw, like when I worked at the agency and I announced that I was leaving, a lot of people were like, "Dude, it's not gonna be the same around here. Like, who's gonna keep people in line? Who's gonna be the person to say the thing in the meeting?" Like,
The thing that
every
other people are afraid of saying, right?
yeah. Well, and I don't know, like, I feel a little like I inspired one of the people who had been a little bit quiet. She was talking about how she was frustrated that somebody else got a promotion or that somebody else was hired for a position that she thought she was gonna get promoted to. And, like, last lunch before I left the company, I remember going to lunch with her, and as we were walking back into the building, I was like, "You've got to take up space. You have to get loud."
Nice.
Like, you are amazing. Everyone here thinks you're amazing, but you have to show them that you do this kind of thinking. And it's not stepping outside, it's not stepping on people's toes. Like, you have to get loud. People don't know that you can do this unless you're loud. And so, as we're walking back into the building, we're in the parking garage on the first floor, which is super echoey. And I'm literally like walking this direction. She's walking the other direction. And I just yelled at her, "Get loud."
Yes.
She was promoted 6 months ago.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes my heart happy.
I give people permission to speak up. I give people permission to take up space, and I can't believe I questioned that because of a bad boss.
Yeah, I am happy that you're hearing that, you know?
Yeah.
You learned that doesn't work for you.
Yeah. That's not the role I can play this time. Maybe a different lifetime. Maybe when I reincarnate as a cat or something, but, um, not this time. That's not who I can be this time.
Yeah. Okay, this is the part where we share something that's bringing us joy. So, what in your life is bringing you joy? It could be anything.
Oh my goodness. Can I have 2 things?
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is steak and cake. Steak and cheesecake. Um, we had a week of ups and downs here, and sometimes it feels like when bad things happen that you're, not supposed to be happy, or you're not supposed to, like, also be able to feel joy, like, hold all the things at the same time.
Yeah, I call that survivor's guilt.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
And in this case, unfortunately, that is true. Some of
Mhm.
the things that happened in Kansas City this week were really hard, and I had a great day, and I still got to eat dinner with my husband, on Valentine's Day night, and he made this beautiful steak for dinner, and I was just so happy to be home with him, cooking together and eating this incredible, delicious meal. So, I literally remember thinking, like, am I supposed to be allowed, to have joy in this moment?
Mhm.
So I am in my this week, I'm learning how to have joy and sorrow in the same moment. Look at me grow, Sal, look at me grow. And then the second one is, cheesecake. I am going to dinner with friends tonight, which is one of my very favorite things to do is, make food and share it with people that I adore, and I made a new recipe that I think might be really fucking good.
Yay.
It is a mocha peppermint chocolate cheesecake, and
Whoa.
I'm really excited to try it. So that's for dessert in, I don't know, a few hours.
Wow. Amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
You'll have to report back. I'm sure it will be wonderful.
I mean, I don't think it could be bad. There's a lot of cream cheese in this thing.
Don't think it could be bad.
No. What's yours? What's your joy?
Okay, mine um, is something I call virtual coffee.
Okay.
So I have this little group, it's just 3 of us,
Yeah.
and every other week, we meet for virtual coffee, and so the thing is, I met one of these women totally virtually. She lives in Pennsylvania. When we met, still does, and I'm in Maine. And so I met her through this group that we were in, and I was like, "I like her. I want to get to know her better. How do I do that?" And, in real life, like, in person, I would invite her to coffee. And I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Do you wanna have virtual coffee?"
Yeah.
And then we included another woman who also was remote to us. And so every 2 weeks, we meet for virtual coffee, and we just shoot the shit, and sometimes we talk about work, but mostly we don't. And we all work for ourselves, and if we just chat, and I just love it was my way of nurturing these relationships
Yeah.
even though we couldn't be in the same room.
I love that. You're so good at taking the next step with your friendships. Like, you're so good at, like, "I would love to get to know you better. Let's do that."
Aw.
It's a good reminder to choose the people that you spend time with, because if you're not intentional about it, sometimes your schedule fills up with people that you're like, "Yeah, okay, sure."
Oh, that's something that came out of this decimate my calendar thing,
Yeah.
was that I used to oh, girl, you will identify with this. I used to when someone invited me to a thing, doesn't matter what the thing was, I would first thing I would do is consult my calendar, and
Uh-huh.
if I had a free slot, I would say yes.
Uh-huh.
I don't do that anymore.
Oh, girl.
Now, when I get invited to something, the first thing I do is ask myself, "Do I fucking want to do that?"
Yes. Oh my gosh, I want to applaud. Can I applaud?
Yes. It is a game changer.
Yeah.
And that's part of the decimating the calendar was, like, learning, teaching myself, I don't have to do everything. Just because 'cause I'm available doesn't mean I fucking want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm trying to
So
teach my kids that too.
oh, yes. Yes, please do. Teach
Yeah.
them not to take on our calendars.
Mhm.
So, I'll give you a throwback. When I listened to your first episode, one of the things that you and Emily talked about was breaking up with a friend, and I have had I've had a couple of friend breakups, but one is very significant in my life, and I it was a calendar thing. Like, it was like a when we make plans, I get this feeling in the pit of my belly that I don't wanna go.
Oh.
Yeah. And, like, I don't wanna hurt anybody, like, I don't again, me taking up space should not mean that other people can't breathe. Um, and so I tried for a while to just figure out how to draw the boundaries of that relationship so that I could enjoy our time together and make it the right cadence or the right amount of time so that I wasn't giving more than I could give,
Mhm,
and ultimately it came down to I feel like I'm on the same roller coaster over and over again, and
mhm.
I don't think I'm in the right place to have a long-term relationship with you. So, we broke up not once, but twice. Do not recommend. But I loved listening to you and Emily talk about it because it was such a like, it is easily more painful than all of my actual romantic relationships.
Yeah,
And it's something that I stewed over for a really long time because she had been there through so many important things for me that it felt like giving up on her, which isn't fair because I still feel really strongly that my calendar is better now.
yeah.
That stuff without looking at it and feeling that feeling. So,
Wow. Yeah. I'm glad that resonated with you.
thanks for this podcast because that helped me.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Jess, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being honest and vulnerable. And I always love talking to you. You always make me happy.
Same. This has been a highlight of my week. I've been looking forward to this. And thanks for hearing me. I think part of the beauty of this is that you and I get to spend time and that I just feel very heard. So if it helps somebody else, all the better. But thanks for
Yeah.
hanging out with me.
Thanks. Yeah. And thank you to my listeners who've made it this far. I really appreciate that you've listened. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope that you have already subscribed or followed or whatever these little podcast platforms want you to do, so that you can catch all of my next episodes. And also, please, I would love, love, love if you shared this with somebody. Share this with a friend, share this with someone you want to get to know better, share this with someone who you have shared experiences with. I would love that. Thank you. So until next time, this is your gal pal Sal, and you are listening to Chin Hairs and F Bombs.